If you want to grow 2 to 3 times as much food in the same amount of growing space, keep watching. I'm Zach Buckle, and we were able to harvest $86,000 of food this year on this 1/3 acre vegetable farm in our 120-day growing season with the technique I'm about to share with you in this video. Okay, so here's the secret to double the amount of food you can grow in the same amount of growing space. Keep planting all season long. It is really that simple. Keep planting food every week you possibly can. We plant food on this farm every single week from the first week in February all the way to the first week in October. And we live in Cody, Wyoming, where we have a zone 4B to 5A climate and 120 frost-free days. So if you live in a climate warmer than that, you have a lot bigger time window to continue planting food. And right here is an example of what I'm talking about. These are the last of our winter green onions that we planted after our summer tomatoes. And right here is the last of our fall indoor celery that we planted after those same summer tomatoes. And what happened here was the tomato crop in here was about 80% successful, and there was a bacterial disease affecting the roots on about 20% of the plants. And so it's a real gut punch for growing tomatoes, but because of the way we plant the farm, it really wasn't that big of a deal because we are planting something every single week. And I always plant way more transplants than I need because of these kinds of situations. Especially with tomatoes, you never know what's going to happen 3 to 6 months down the line. And tomatoes are so valuable that if we do lose some plants, we need something else to put there to produce food in their place to still bring the farm value. So that bacterial wilt disease, while it's a huge gut punch, it really didn't affect the bottom line of our farm all that much in the amount of food we were able to produce because we still had transplants ready to go to put in the spots where the bacterial disease were killing the tomato plants. So I don't know if you can tell from this shot, but the celery is only planted in certain patches in this greenhouse because as soon as I pulled the tomato plant out, I put in a fresh celery plant, or actually about 12 or something in the same spot that one tomato plant would have been. So having fresh seeded plants every opportunity that you have throughout the growing season decreases the amount of risk that you have when growing food. You're never going to regret having more than enough plants to grow the crop that you think you need. So you always want to grow more. And if you stay disciplined and seed plants in your nursery every single week, you always have food to plant in your garden that's halfway grown, and it increases the chance of that food becoming a real harvest instead of a half-grown plant like if you direct seeded it. So that's just one example. Let me show you 2 more. So this is an outdoor example of what I'm talking about. This is a second crop in the same bed. This bed produced an entire crop of shallots for us that was growing in the ground from May to about late August. And then we pulled those shallots and we replanted to Tokyo Bekana, which as you can see is nice and dead now because it's been cold enough to kill this crop. But the point is we still got 30 pounds of Tokyo Bekana out of this bed after about 200 pounds of shallots. So in your garden, if you had the same situation and you had about 5 foot planted of shallots, you could pull all those shallots and replant that 5 feet to Tokyo Bekana and have fresh salad from every week from late October through probably the end of November. We're in late December now, so that's why this looks so bad. But a lot of years we could have got away with this. But the point is 2 crops instead of 1 in the same bed. And I just know the plant timing well enough to know that I could fit these particular 2 crops in the same bed. This Tokyo Bekana grows in 18 days. That's why I have it in my arsenal, because it's so fast. But there's lots of other crops that you can fit them in the same growing season if you know the plant timing well enough, which we're going to go over later. But this is an outside example. We got 2 crops in a 120-day growing season by using our planting schedules to their full potential and making sure that we're staying on time every single week. So I looked at my plant schedule and I knew that late August was enough time to plant this Tokyo Bekana and get a crop, and it worked. And what you're looking at here is our winter cilantro, which we have already harvested one time, by the way. So this is almost completely regrown since our harvest around early November, and we're almost into January now. So we're gonna get at least 2 cuts out of this, probably 3 throughout the winter, which is a huge amount of food. But this was planted after our summer crop of really long season tomatoes. So we had tomatoes in the ground on this bed from first week in April all the way until around the first week in September or something like that. I can't remember the exact dates, but the point is, this is technically the 3rd crop this year that's been in this bed. And we've still gotten 1 cut from this cilantro already, and we're gonna get another one early next year. So you can see where I'm going with this. This is an assembly line of food, because every plot of ground is planted as much as humanly possible throughout the growing season. There are times where there's just no point in planting anything, because like right now, it's late December. You can't really plant anything right now, even in a greenhouse in my climate, because it really just won't start right. You know, it might germinate like 3 months later, but it's just not gonna work that well. But the point I'm making is not planting in December, it's planting every single week during your ideal planting window to get a crop. And that depends on whether you're outside in a greenhouse, whatever the context is. But the reason I'm making this video is for you growing outside in your garden, not necessarily in a greenhouse. Because even outside, there is a huge opportunity to double the amount of food in the same space just by planting every single week. And I'm gonna go over some easy ways to make that happen for you, even in your backyard. Okay, to make it as easy as possible for you to plant every single week you possibly can next year and double or triple the amount of food you grow in the same space, I'm gonna give you 4 simple steps that you can remember, write down, take notes, and make this happen for you. Step 1, focus on quick crops if you're a beginner. So that means 70 days to maturity or less. So I'm gonna list them all right here, and I'm gonna put varieties next to some of them. Some of them doesn't really matter, but this is something you could pause the video, take a screenshot, write down, so you have a list of really easy crops to accomplish this in your arsenal. So you've got carrots, radishes, beets, turnips, green onions, spinach, lettuce, arugula. Those are all 70 days to maturity or less. With carrots, I'd really recommend you focus on Mokum or Napoli varieties. Those ones are the ones I grow on the farm, and they are much faster than most of your open pollinated heirloom carrots. Step 2, get a fall planting calendar. I've got one in the link in the description. It's from Johnny's Seeds. It's worked really well for me. All you gotta do is find your average first frost date in your climate and it will automatically calculate the best days to start about 30 different vegetables. So if you are adventurous, you could try stuff outside of the ones I recommended in step 1. But if you're a beginner, I'd really recommend you just stick with those ones. And because you're just going to increase your odds of success by growing the fastest crops first. Because other fall crops like celery are a lot trickier and they take a lot more experience to be good at. Step 3, check that planting list and schedule every single week throughout the growing season. So when most people stop planting their gardens around Memorial Day, you are still checking that planting schedule. First week in June, second week in June, third week in June, fourth week in June, first week in July, and so on. Up until there is no more dates left on that planting schedule. So all you got to do is check that thing every single week, and if there's still time to plant the crop that you want to grow, seed it. Whether it's right in the ground, you're putting seeds, or you're starting plants inside on your windowsill, under your grow lights, indoors. Either one will work for the most part. You just have to have room for the seed to go. So if you don't have room in your garden, start them inside. So for example, with beets, sometimes you might not have room in your garden to direct seed beets because your garden is full of plants. So what you can do is start beets inside in plant cells and transplant them out later when you do have room. You can do that with a lot of different things, not just beets. And that's exactly what we do on the farm. If we don't have room in a bed like this, these are open beds. If we didn't have them open, we would just start them inside our nursery in some kind of plant cell. And then we transplant them out later when we do have room. So that way you're never behind. Your plants are always growing at the right time. Step 4 is as soon as you're done harvesting one crop, you replant to another crop, whatever you can fit based on that fall planting schedule in your growing season. So for example, this cilantro over here, we're gonna harvest it at least one more time, probably 2 more times, and around March or April, we're gonna rip it all out. We're gonna put some more compost down and amend the soil, and we're gonna probably plant with fresh beet transplants, because we usually plant beets on the sides of our tomato beds before the tomatoes go in. So the beets are halfway grown by the time we put the tomatoes in. Then by the time the tomatoes get this tall, the beets are ready to harvest, and we have an extra crop that we wouldn't have had before. So you can see we just constantly have plants going in the ground, growing, and being harvested. So it's just, we're having an assembly line of food as much as humanly possible. And it's really that simple. That's about it. If you keep to those 4 steps, you're gonna absolutely at least double the amount of food you grow in the same space. And here's something to keep in mind with this whole concept. Seeds and potting soil cost way less than food at the store. This bag of seeds cost me about 20 bucks. And I think it's 5 pounds of seeds like this. This bag of potting soil cost me about $22. If you buy it 1 bag at a time, it's $30. And this is really high quality potting soil. This is enough to plant a whole 300 square foot garden with plants a whole growing season. I know how to do that with this bag of soil, 30 bucks. And with this amount of seed, if I really wanted to grow every single one of these seeds to a full crop of broccoli, kale, arugula, because this is a mix of seed, each one of these seeds could be worth $5, $10, $15, $20 of food if you grow it to maturity. So the point is, don't worry about burning through seeds too fast or using up too much potting soil, because I guarantee you it is way cheaper than buying that same amount of food at the store. So just keep to this mantra. Keep planting, keep eating. It's really that simple. This is how my farm works, It is how you can grow a boatload of food in your backyard. And if you're serious about growing food in your backyard, check out my free Backyard Farm Launchpad at the link in the description below, where I show you how to set up a really easy no-dig garden in 4 easy steps. And you can do exactly what I'm talking about in this video in your first year. All you got to do is set your garden up in exactly the way I describe in that document. If you like this video, please hit those thumbs below and leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to see what people are doing with this concept all over the world. And I hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you in the next one.